It's perfect. Perfect level, perfect everything, perfect. I don't know, whatever you want to call perfect. Hello, everyone. This is your old but still hanging friend Carlz coming to you with another week of, yeah, fun comic books. This week there were a lot of number ones, but some really interesting stuff. But of course, the upcoming Bad Seed event in Batman is taking at least most of my attention. Um, I've been mostly keeping up. I'm doing this new thing where I don't finish a whole week of books before starting the new ones. So I'm prioritizing the stories. It's a weird thing. I should have done that before just to not fall behind on whatever is going on. I don't want to be left behind in the big things like Bad Seeds, because the rhythm of all of this entertainment business, it's really overwhelming. I've complained about it before, but I don't think I will ever find it acceptable, and I don't think it will ever go back. The degree in which media and commentators and everybody needs to create content is just annoying as hell. We're already getting news, not only about what's coming on after DNX, the event of the X-Men in Marvel, the whole Jean Grey thing. This is a little bit more quiet in that sense. You gotta respect that. I've always been a Marvel guy, but from the past 5 years, I've been slowly being drawn into DC. And even if you're not a professional editor or anything in comics, you can sort of see how they manage this sort of stuff. As a consumer, in the consumer level, you can see more cohesive stories, you can see more coordinated stuff. You can see it, and I for one, I'm really grateful for that. I am. I don't hate, that's a strong word, but it really bothers me when Marvel does this thing, especially with characters like Spider-Man. I'm gonna get like 5 ongoings in different timelines with different purposes. I mean, like, that is too much. And I think Bad Seeds, the upcoming Batman Gotham City event, it must be some sort of new standards that I would love for these big companies to apply. Having the capacity of having big stories while being kind of like the fire or the feeding for the event, which is something that movies can never do. They can never achieve that rhythm. Speaking of movies, my upcoming episode on Spider-Man Brand New Day is coming out in English either tomorrow or today. We'll see how it goes. I'm pretty busy. But anyways, speaking of busy, let's get busy. First, who the fuck is Rom? And why do people are so hyped about him? This new Space Knight character is gonna be part of the Energon universe back at Image, and this book written by Kirkman himself, and with also art by Defelici, is like, I don't know, man. Why is he holding a USB-C as a gun? Here's the thing. Down here we got Transformers, we got G.I. Joe. I think Mask was not that big, or at least I don't remember seeing it as a kid. When this character Rom appeared in Marvel Comics, and like it was news, I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Back then, I did like a little bit of research, and like he was a toy. His license bounced around between Hasbro, Dark Horse, Marvel, whatever. Despite all of that, I still don't know why people like this character so much. I don't. I wonder if it's because we didn't really see the ROM toys here. I don't know, but apparently he's popular enough to get his own book. Perhaps in North America and other places he's a bigger character, but down here I don't think no one has ever told me Rom is my favorite character, or I had Rom toys. I don't know. I don't know who the fuck this guy is. I don't know why people like him so much, but he's gonna be part of the Energon universe. So, so you gotta go like, okay, I guess he's relevant. Always being tied up to the whole Transformers things or like the whole Hasbro. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I read his license isn't Hasbro originally. I don't know, man. It's just a confusing mess of who owns who and what is what. But I think overall it's just some type of nostalgia thing for people that who actually experience the ROM lifestyle. I don't know. But anyway, he's coming to the Energon universe, so I'm gonna check it out. I doubt I will ever grow the love for the character that apparently a lot of people have. Next. We are almost there. Almost there. I just talked about how I hate when Spider-Man is all over the place, but like, okay, focus. He might have a million books every week bouncing around, but Spider-Man is still in The Amazing Spider-Man, and this is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 999. It seems like only yesterday we were talking about the upcoming issue 1000, and we're almost there. Casey was talking about the importance of the issue 1000, the honor of being the one who wrote it, but we gotta see, because the main thing they have established before going into 1000 is, of course, by now we all know, Aunt May's long lost son, this millionaire called Cormac Kane Cormac, well, some K name. It's funny because apparently the Marvel Universe has more billionaires than fucking real world. But anyways, despite all of what you can say, including the fact that they say there's gonna be a new nemesis like added to the Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, like nobody gives a fuck about new bad guys. When was the last time they created a new bad guy for Spider-Man that actually stuck around, or that actually people like were excited for? I don't know. Every ounce of attention is focused, and it was focused during the past issues of Amazing Spider-Man as well on Peter's now current drama. I always says the Peter Parker roller coaster. He's up, he's down, he's up, he's down. He was relatively up when he came back from space. He had some friends. He started mending things up, but the looming danger is Aunt May's, his son, who apparently is super good, and they get so good, and now Peter is a little bit jealous. That's it. That's what they have hinted at. He is a little bit jealous, and he seems to be having trouble accepting that he's not an only child anymore. That is the main thing to look forward for Amazing Spider-Man 1000. No new love interest, no fucking the new nemesis, who cares? No new conflicts, that's it. Issue 1000 is necessarily gonna be something about Peter and his family dynamics, and we'll see what happens. There's nothing much to say. This is 999. 3 nines. Amazing Spider-Man issue 1000 is the next step. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure that it's gonna be that important. I don't know how much it's gonna change. My bet is that Cormac is either gonna become a supervillain, who, by the way, knows that Peter is Spider-Man, which was really odd because it is like, yeah, I knew, like I deducted it, yeah, like I figured it out just by looking, and I'm like, what? We know it's kind of stupid. It's like the whole thing with Superman's glasses, but he's like, yeah, I figured it out. Okay, come on, man. My bet is still on him being a villain, but we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, the Amazing Spider-Man, get that 35 out of here. This is issue 999. Man, I said it before, I had the perfect memory of when they announced issue 700. Whatever, next. This is the book of the week. Without any doubt, we are in some sort of HELLRAISER's renaissance. It's so odd. There's a new game coming up. But HELLRAISER, even though in the horror movie genre circles, it's been like a constant. There's like a million movies. I haven't seen all of them. I think I stopped in 7 before the kind of reboot they came up with. Here's the thing. When I sat down to watch HELLRAISER from 5 up, I did feel like it became stale. A little bit of formulaic. Of course, it had like poor budget, bad actors. It was like crappy movies. You don't necessarily blame that on the lack thereof of Clive Barker's presence. You know, that's my point. Because the biggest selling point of this comic book, published by Boom Studio, is that Clive Barker's, the creator, is coming back. They're talking about continuity, and I'm like, continuity? I thought this series was all about this deranged, sick alternate dimension that you would get if you unlock the puzzle, and it would take you to this perverted metaphor of human desires. I thought it was all about it. HELLRAISER 1 and 2, they function perfect as that, like the Cenobites being figments of your nightmares, figments of your perverted desires, like the things that you don't want to tell anyone. That shit was awesome. Like the box was like your subconscious, and it like, in your subconscious is where the devils and the demons lie. That shit was awesome. I saw HELLRAISER 1 when I was like 14 or something. But anyways, the point is, did it need Barker's presence to keep going? I never expected HELLRAISER to be a timeline canonic sort of progressive story. As I said, to me, HELLRAISER was just this pocket dimension of horror. It could happen at any time. It could happen to anyone. Just open the puzzle, open your mind, and see the horrors of the human mind, because it's human at the end, right? The Cenobites, they're not demons. They're just expressions of humanity's twisted brains. But anyways, I remember the reboot of HELLRAISER being quite fun. I remember it was fun. They had like the female Pinhead, so go figure how people reacted to that. But I'm pretty sure Clive Barker's has been somehow attached or related to all stages of HELLRAISER. If it's only for a paycheck, it's his creation after all. So what to expect of this book? Personally, I don't remember the first 2 movies that well, so I don't recall them having so much of a continuity. So if the selling point of this book is the story's continuity, I think that will cater for a really kind of like precise type of people. Because for sure there's people that probably saw Hellraiser for like as I say, like an overarching story. There's probably a lot of people that saw it like that. I personally did not. I saw it as this poetic, artistic horror expression for the perversion of the human mind. And well, if the book is gonna have good art and that sort of nightmarish imagery, I'm all for it. Don't ask me about lore, but might be worth it. Go back and read what happened in Hellraiser 1 and 2. Most likely, maybe. I don't know. I think just don't go watch the latest movies. I don't remember. I think the last one I saw was like 7 or something. I'm not even sure how many there are, but I'm pretty sure like later on they would release like the most random Hellraiser something, you know, like Hellraiser and a subtitle. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this. So it's a good jumping point, not only as a book, but as a welcome back to the franchise. I have no doubt that the upcoming other multimedia material on the franchise, like the game and everything, is completely related to this. Hellraiser is a classic horror franchise, and I'm glad it's not going away. That's it. Next. Speaking of number ones, Rick Remenders with Steve Epting, new book Hammerfist is coming out today on Image Comics. Rick Remender, one of my favorite authors of the past 10 years. 10? Could be. When did Black Science came out? I don't know. But we have this new story about this, is it anti-hero? Could be, but we have the whole classic drugs and crime and sort of story with a supernatural attachment to it. But is Rick Remender. So now, what is the main issue with this weirdo character? He has a daughter. Oh. So probably we have this new setting where like there's like fantasy and there's like magic and demons, but at the core it's gonna be a really personable story between really well crafted human beings, which is Remender's like totally undeniable strength. Yeah, he does that every time. He did a family story Low. There's a family story in his latest one. Well, not this one, but the previous later one, Escape. You know, he did a great one, a short one with the skate one in Gromit. Of course, found family dynamics is the core in one of his best works, Deadly Class. His other almost close to end book, The Seasons, is also about family. Sacrificers is about family. What else? And of course, Black Science. Black Science is so good. I would reread Black Science if it wasn't that short. But I think this book, Hammerfist, is a little bit more related to the Scumbag. He released that book. It was a little bit harder to find these family elements in the Scumbag, which was basically this scumbag. He was like an asshole character who, by happenstance, ended up being the savior of the universe. But anyways, it's a new book by Remender, one of my favorite authors. And I see in its future some degree of really well crafted human social and family interactions between its characters. You know, undeniably, Rick Remender writes really good action as well. So it has the whole look of like a Tarantino-ish, actiony movie, you know. I was looking forgetting that Rick Remender wrote Captain America. But anyways, let's hope for a lot of action, a lot of demons and fantasy, while near the end or like in the middle, he flips the trap card, and we get a deeply human and very well written emotional story between the main characters. We'll see what happens. Rick Remender's new book, Hammerfist, this week by Image Comics. Next. Speaking of new, I don't know why they switched the DC logo for this, but coming out of the past Absolute Wonder Woman story, this new story is awesome because Ares, the god of war, is coming to the Absolute Universe, and that is something that honestly they haven't done well in the main Wonder Woman continuity since the New 52. I mentioned before how my reintroduction to Wonder Woman during the New 52 era was one of my favorites. Well, I love the suit design back then, but also how she was like dropped in the middle of god dynamics and mythology and everything, which is something that they sort of have left behind in the main Wonder Woman continuity. So if they're using that in Absolute Wonder Woman as a fresh start, it gives me New 52 vibes all over again in the best way possible. The last story arc ended up with Diana entering conflict with some of the gods, challenging the status quo whilst being part of it, of course. And of course we saw the birth of Absolute Cheetah, which was great. We saw in the previous story arc the development of the relationship between Diana and Absolute Satana. So the setup is great for this to be a new mythology-centered Wonder Woman story. As she comes back to the world of men, I'm talking about humans, with the repercussions of whatever things she shook up in the God's world. You know? It's pretty great. And look at that cover, man. Everything about Absolute Wonder Woman is awesome. Even the logo is just like a ragged thing, you know? But anyways, she's coming back to the city, coming back to her human relationships. Let's see what are the consequences of her riling up the world of the gods. You know? This is so interesting, so good, so cool. Everything about this book is cool. The new relationships, the new Shida. Absolute Shida has been shown to be immediately different to main continuity Shida, as she sort of became Shida out of her own volition. You know, it's sort of like the base of Shida on the main universe is resentment and rage, but this Shida, you know, this might be different, might be pretty exciting. Absolute Wonder Woman, new story. Next. Speaking of new stories, Vertigo is coming with this book called The Black Tower, The Raven Conspiracy by Ram B, who is everywhere. He writes everything, apparently. There's one thing that I want to say about this book. There's one thing and one thing only. This is supposed to be a supernatural, sort of detective-ish book with British people. You know what I'm going to say. How is this not constant? Like that is the one reason why I'm like, this book triggered me so bad. Like occult, magic, British intelligence, paranormal incidents, Vertigo. It almost feels like they're like, okay, we can't take back Constantine from the main continuity, so let's just make something similar. Personally, I'm not that much of a fan of Ram B. I don't know, man. There's something about it, like about him, that just doesn't pick my attention. I think I have some issue with his Vampirella universe. Like, I don't know, maybe some, not resentment, that sounds too much, but something that I couldn't really got into it, and from then on I find it really hard to get into any of his books except Rare Flavors. Rare Flavors is a masterpiece. Rare Flavors is a masterpiece of a book. But because it's more self-contained and it's clear what they wanted to do, maybe that lack of clarity is what sort of affects me in some of his other work. But anyways, fuck it. This book is basically Constantine. That's it. Even the cover looks like a old Hellblazer. You know, like with Hellblazer up here, like some shit around there, and it's Hellblazer. Next. Of course, we gotta talk about Bad Seeds. I was talking about at the beginning. This is the beginning of the event, Batman Bad Seeds. There's one thing that I have to say about Bad Seeds. I talked about how, for example, the Barbara Gordon book, the Harley Quinn wasn't that much there. I talked how many of those books seemed a little bit slow towards Bad Seeds, but now I'm thinking that maybe they were saving the climaxes of all of those books for the event, which is certainly interesting. It does take a little bit of edge out of the individual books, but if they were all aiming towards the event, that's okay. The setup hasn't been that hardcore, you know. I've praised how they set up most of the Gotham books to aim towards this event, and they have done it well, but they certainly saved the more epic stuff for the event, if anything's gonna be epic. This will definitely be the ending of either Poison Ivy's time as Major, Randall Savage as Commissioner. You know, it certainly is gonna be a change for Harley Quinn, who necessarily needs to be there. Batman is doing kind of like a weird thing on the side. I expect also the Barbara Gordon book coming into this. They just finished the last story arc for Batgirl, Cassandra, so I expect at least Cassandra to be part of this, because I don't think they're gonna bring Stephanie, who is hanging around with the Titans. You know, at the beginning of the Batman book, we had a lot of Tim Drake. He's been off the radar. The point is, the setup was great, mostly on asking questions than in proposing things, because everything was clearly set up to be dealt in the event. It's great that all of the authors of all the other books are credited as being part of this, sort of being like communitary event, if you want to call it like that. I have no idea. I'm not sitting on the editor's table with all of them, but the fact that they all seem to be actively part of it makes you think that this is more like a communal event than just one guy having an idea and being the one behind it. I don't know if we've seen a Gotham event like this before. Have we? I remember so many Batman events, and whenever something happens with Batman, of course it affects the whole of Gotham. But having these many characters involved in like a little bit of an independent way, it's great. It's finally here. Bad Seeds, the event. What do you call it? I mean, I know Batman because Batman is the main guy, and even the logo is like a bat. But it could be like Gotham Batsies. It would be even better. We'll see what happens. I have no idea, and I kept myself out of reading any synopsis for the event, so I know where all of those characters are going into the event, but I have no idea what they're gonna do. Next. Last but not least, I never care about the character one shot. Never. Ever once. You know, I'm not even like mildly interested in fucking Suicide Squad or whatever. I think many of those rogues that got a place in basically Suicide Squad, many of those rogues are like mid-tier at best. You know? That's the truth. It's like they're mid, but at the same time, you gotta recognize when it's supposed to be something important, and they straight up did that in this book. The synopsis of the book is like, One Shot has a secret that is going to change the whole universe. The next level, how you call it, initiative is gonna change forever. Even the cover is like next level. Is that sheep? Is that a sheep strategy? Yes. Does that mean that the book is gonna be bad? No. But yeah, it's a cheap strategy. Like this random shitty character has a secret that is key for the whole continuity. Okay. You better fucking read it, right? That's it. If you are enjoying This Is Next Level, I guess you have no choice but to read One Shot. Next Level, the name is Next Level One Shot. Deadshot knows too much. That's the whole name of the thing. Fuck it. It's just one important tidbit of information that is gonna be critical for the next level initiative at DC going forward. Fuck. If you have to endure some Deadshot in the middle. I think the thing that I dislike the most about Deadshot about a character is that if you have Deadshot and Deathstroke and probably a couple of more characters who are like DC's biggest and better assassins, and they never miss and everything. They all kind of like do the same shit. But for some reason, characters like Deathstroke get so much fan base. But whatever, fuck it. And that's it for this week of comic books. A lot of interesting things coming as we approach the end of the year and the big things to come. You know, whatever, man. There's always big things to come. There's always something to do. Everybody's busy, but there's always time for some fantasy in the shape of comic books. Look forward for my Spider-Man Brand New Day commentary coming in English soon-ish. I think even I really relied on my new sort of comic book reading rhythm, but I think that has indeed pushed me back anyway, so I better shape up, because I need a man and my heart is set on you. See you all next week. Thank you for listening. Have a good one. Read some comics. Bye bye.